How did I get here and I'm the only one here? Zach. Good evening.
Yep, I'm here.
I was wondering how I was on there and I didn't see anybody else, including you.
Yeah.
Wake up, Dottie. God bless you. Sinuses are driving me nuts.
You mean more so than usual?
Yes. Absolutely. And believe me, it's a short drive. You're gonna join in? Yeah, we're gonna have a chorus.
I already had the worst of mine right before we clicked on.
Well, mine's just ongoing.
Okay, well,
Are you?
good evening. Am I the host, Zach?
1 second.
Good. I don't need that.
All right, you are it.
Thank you. I gotta get the grief thing up there.
Okay, I'm gonna put.
Okay, let me now go to where we were.
Where do I?
Now and go here. I want to pull that up. And go here. Whoops, there we go. That's what I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, come on. That wasn't nice. Here, now. This is what I'm looking for now.
Where you went last time to get it?
Yeah, I think I've got the right one.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Okay, I think we're back.
Yeah, let's go.
Shall we open with prayer? I can do what I was doing here. I can move this up a little bit. Here we go there. Let us open with prayer. Again, Heavenly Father, as we go through this material, this is a very dynamic part. We spend a little time on it because from this point on, we're moving to where Israel actually becomes a nation, and what that means for and how the role that David plays in all of this. But as we step through the book of Judges and Ruth, Samuel up to this point, it helps us just step back to look what was going on in Judges and what is happening now, how Israel has changed, and what is coming about now, and it'll help us understand better what has happened now with the death of Saul and moving on to David. Help open up our hearts to your truth and realize you want us to live by your rules, and here we begin to see how your rules play out in our lives. Guide us and teach us, and through your Holy Spirit, move us to understand your word and to enjoy that truth. In your Son's name, Father, we pray for guidance. Amen. Okay. I thought, I went through this, and I thought, as I got into this new thing with David coming on, I'm not. We can hear the dynamic of it all, but I don't think we fully get and understand. I may be wrong. We get a fully understand of what is happening when you begin to see the geography of all of this. You begin to understand what's going on, and as we went through Judges, we read the book of Judges and kind of went right through it. But now that we're in Samuel, it will help us to reflect back on Judges to see what has happened now. Why is the situation like it is now? Because David is going to be the one that's going to come in and consolidate all of this. But it's understanding the dynamics. If you remember, when God had told the children of Israel to come in to the promised land, they didn't want to do it. And they had to go 40 years. They all died in the wilderness. And then Joshua comes on in. And again, they begin to lose things. It begins to come apart. There's and as we go through that, I think there's a little conceit on our part can go, okay, yeah, they're just unfaithful. But it really wasn't that. It was something else that was happening. If we just may step back a little bit, when the children of Israel were in Egypt, they weren't high-class culture people in Egypt. They came in as nomads, or semi-nomads, really, into Egypt. But under Egypt, they were in this urban rural society of the Egyptian world, but they were the slaves. So they're very numerous, but they're really unsophisticated. They have no idea what's going on in a lot of things in the world. They're burdened by slavery. They have their religion, but even there, it's not that strong. If you look what Moses had to go through, to bring them together. Now, often in the wilderness, they kept moving away from him. It becomes, I think, as we read that, and we tend to lose the reality behind it. One of the things I noticed, and because I had to deal with it in a different way, but that I always had to deal with it. As I said before, if you look at the United States, we're one big cultural unit, we think. But if you look at the different areas you're in and how different the people actually are, you begin to understand what had happened to Israel. Now, we're going to move into Saul. Just bear with me, I think, as we go through this, because I want to help you understand this. But if you look at, when I went to Texas, Texas is not much different than Louisiana, but it is very different.
You lived there for about 2 years.
And I lived, 2 years, really. It was totally different than what you have in New Orleans. The one thing you have, and I think this is important to understand, and it's not bad, it's just a fact. New Orleans is probably, and I just read, it's still there, was one of the most cosmopolitan European cities in the United States. Nothing comes close to it. The people that came, you have a number of people that have come through the centuries and talked about New Orleans. And the one thing they're all commenting about, the new ones when they come in, they're not much different than the other ones. You have a dominant racial group but you have in there a large group of people from all over the world, totally different.
Melting pot.
I mean, when you look here, you've got Vietnamese, you've got Hispanic, you've got African Americans, you've got a large German group, a large Irish group that's still there.
Italian.
So you've got a whole different thing. And New Orleans is the place where they adjusted and then moved away. It accounts for New Orleans' strange culture, particularly its food, because the food is coming from the French, the Chinese, and all these, and it becomes a melting pot, but it is totally different than anywhere else you go. And when you move from here to there, you may find it's nice to visit, but you're not comfortable. It's always good to come back home. And I know when I lived I had that in Austin, I didn't understand it. I mean, I'm kind of a strange guy. You know, they think I've got a switchblade in my shoes and I'm hiding it. I'm a member of a gang member. I mean, this kid, I'm 16 years old. You know, if my mom would have heard all of that, you know, she would have went right off the wall. You know, this is what, and I had girls all over the place, you know. I mean, it was really strange with this situation. When we moved on, well, that's what they thought. And remember, I told you, one of the strangest things that happened when I was at Austin, and I still laugh about it, was I was the guy they came to when they had girl problems. Now, what do I know about girls? I hadn't been involved with girls that, well, my sister's at least laughing on it. She knows what that is. You know, how can you answer these problems? All I could use was common sense and tell them. But I was the go-to. Why? I am from New Orleans.
Yeah.
Now, I'll bet, Anita, when you were in Texas, you had a little bit of that, you know, being from New Orleans, you know, what are you doing here in Houston? So it's understanding that kind of relation. When I got to Seattle, it was the same thing. Seattle was even stranger because Seattle was the upper echelon. I mean, as I said, they built 3 or 4 747s in Kirkland.
Oh.
Then not Kirkland. What was it? Edmond. No, the little town. I keep forgetting it.
The little town.
Yeah, right outside of that. But and I can't remember the name of it now. But $64 million went into Seattle community, and they sold 4 of them.
Wow.
And this is where there was money all over the place. So it's a totally different one. And I'm wondering, what are you doing up here, Kelly? You know. And particularly, I got hit with the whole situation with the blacks. I could hit them with the red man. I did that. You know, when I go down into Fort Wayne, we had a Fort Wayne native was telling us we're gonna have a hard time in Fort Wayne because Fort Wayne was settled by criminals and they don't get along with anybody. I have to say I thought it was pretty close when I'm leaving. But everywhere we've been, when we're in Montana, very much the same kind of world. You're very different, you know, and you see that. This is the kind of world, I mean, when you understand what's going on, this is where Israel was. Israel comes from a slave population into the New World, where you will begin to see this, but you don't get much into it. It's very easy to read between the lines. If you look at the Civil War, when the Civil War was over, they had the whites, they took the African Americans and just swept them right off the plantations, and now they were free. But you know something? They couldn't go to school. They were not educated. They could not get help. I mean, they just turned loose. And it's a very trying period, and a very sad period in America. But they set them free, but they didn't know what to do with them after that. And this is when you watch the gradual change through the years, what that meant. This is the children of Israel. They are now, when you're looking in the wilderness, you can understand why they were going nuts. How can we fight? These are poor people. You know, they're not ready to go into sophisticated battles. So you watch with Joshua, and they're constantly falling off the group. Now, one of the things to kind of remember, they have this. They're the low poverty class in Egypt. They come into the Promised Land. They've got to learn. There's no sophistication there. Everything that Abraham would have had, and when Israel, it was Jacob, took them there, they were down now. They didn't have any of that. They weren't ready for sheep herding and things like that because they were making bricks.
True.
So once they left, they were in a sad situation, and God is going to help them all the way through. And you watch this group continually breaking up. Now, it sounds like a totally different approach that I know, and that's why I thought we should do this, going into Judges and coming out of it, into Samuel. Because what you're watching is the gradual development of the children of Israel and what's going on. And the one that got me, if you remember, Jabesh Gilead, that's the last part of Judges. That's when the Benjamites get almost wiped out.
Yeah.
All the men, just about 600 men, and all they could, and the women, and all of them got all killed. So what they had to do, they imported new women. If you saw, like I said, if you saw the movie, if you saw the movie Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, or read about the Sabine women in Rome, this is exactly the same story. In fact, it happens a lot of times in that world. So they captured them and brought them in to get it. Now, somewhere in there, so you're going to be about, Ruth is about 1322 BC. And now we're just moving up into this world now. And we'll have some more dates as we go into this. We're in the 11th century right now with all of this. But what has happened, I'll just kind of go through this to kind of explain what has happened. It'll help us. Because when we get to David, we always cover David. But most people don't cover David that well. Why was he like he was? What happened? What makes David so different? So with the book of Judges, if we go there, we just kind of move through this quickly. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. I want to get on to some of the others. But I'm going to try to do this in 3 steps to first give us some idea where we're going, and at least I'll give you some idea of the geography in some of this. If you remember, it's about the death of Joshua to the death of Samson is about 350 years. So it gives you an idea of the time, 350 years. Israel has moved into this area, but it's a very weak confederacy. The other thing is when you look at the area they moved into, they're a minority in that whole group. So you'll have a tribe here surrounded by Canaanites, and a tribe over here surrounded by Canaanites, and a tribe over here surrounded by Canaanites, And if you notice, and it's really true, I notice I never realized the culture in New Orleans, how different it is until I made trips to other places and I had to live there, and then realize, wow, it's so different. There's a very good part about it and there's a very bad part about it, but you've got to get used to that. And most people don't understand it. So when the Canaanites and the Israelites come together, there's a little tension right there. So stepping right here. But at the same time, let's see if I can get a map here. I had one on further. At the same time that, here, this will work, that Israel comes into this whole area we call Israel, the Philistines move in. The Philistines were Greeks. During this period, they had a period. What had happened with the Greeks was that Minoa, an island Crete, was a very powerful sea merchant area, and a very powerful navy. Nobody threatened Minoa. It had a volcano on it. The volcano exploded and literally destroyed the Minoan Empire. So the Minoans, what was left of them, fled to different places and they went to Greece. So they taught the Greeks how to use the ships and everything. This is when you get into the book of the Iliad and the Odyssey, we may have heard, maybe not, but the Iliad, this is about Menelaus and Agamemnon, were the early Greek kings who had received some of this training from the Minoans. Now, once they got used to the boat and once they had the fight with when they all had this fight with Iran, and this is where Esther comes in, they dominated the world, the Greeks, and they went all over the place. They were able to. So what they did, the Philistines now come and they settle by the coast. Now, if you notice, these were the big cities
Mhm.
of Philistia, of the Philistines. Gaza, where are we at now? Gaza. I don't know if you've heard that name. It's kind of, might be out there somewhere. Ashkelon, Ashdod, Ekron, and Gath. Now, notice these cities dominate this area. Now, if you remember in the Bible, every now and then we talk about the Decapolis.
Mhm.
This is the area. These were called a Pencopolis,
Acropolis?
a Pentapolis. No,
You said
the Decapolis.
Oh,
It's the 10 major cities. This, in the Greek, when they were there, because the Romans conquered it, so that's going to have the Decapolis rather than the Pentapolis. Pentapolis. I got it, Pentapolis. This little area here is that. Now look, Ziklag. See where Ziklag is. Now, what has happened now? We know how we got here. Because when David fled from Saul, he came to the Philistines. He had nowhere else to go. So the Philistine king settled him in Ziklag,
Right.
which means all of David's followers, Israelites, move into a Palestinian area. It was like Rosalie and I when we went to Seattle. A little different. But notice, see the wilderness of Ziph? See Samuel 23
Mhm.
and Getty? Well, right here. So what you're watching is this gradual change. And it's going to be important enough to understand, I think, because what you watch, this whole thing with the Bible and with Israel, it's normal. We have the same problem. We have the very same problem. This is why when you look at the things going on in the whole situation in the Civil War, how different New Orleans was. They actually had a woman from Louisiana
Okay.
who she owned that plantation where Angola is, the prison in Angola. She owned all of that. And during the Civil War, she lived in Tennessee. When she had married this Tennessean, she actually got the rebel Confederacy Army to carry her cotton to the Mississippi River. And because the Union only had the boats, the Union soldiers took the cotton off the levee and put it on their boats and brought it up to the north so she could ship it out to England.
She was really
Now, unbelievable.
Very rich.
A fact. This is why when you look at where Angola is, this is where it all happened. Now, I don't know how that strikes you, but when I first read about that, I had to go and look, wait a minute. I remember something about this. Let me look. And sure enough, very clearly, what she would do is she'd feed them. With, right there, the Union doesn't have any food or anything going on. The rebels are having no food. So she feeds them all. And she gets the enemy to carry the cotton to the enemy so the enemy can load it on their boats and take it to their place. And then she goes into the enemy country and has it shipped. And she's in Nashville. So she's still in the civil area. So it gives you an idea. It very helps to understand. I think it should help to understand what's going on here with the Israelites. Now, the Philistines dominated the seacoast. Now, from the plains of Escalon, when we've had that, I showed you that. I'll just keep going back and forth. I'm hoping this will help a little bit.
Okay.
See, Escalon. Oh, there's Dottie.
Oh,
There's
don't worry about it.
The Sinead.
Oh.
Right up in here. The plains of Escalon. See, we'll get into this, really. But it just shows you where they are. Now, what that meant, which we don't know a whole lot, the Greeks had chariots. The Israelites fought on foot. It's the difference of having a foot army go against tanks. So what has happened here? They can't handle that. I mean, they're not that sophisticated. So the center of power is centered in Panopolis. We talked about Gaza, Ashkelon, Ekron, and it had a flourishing culture that Israel and they got along very well. But notice the difference. You know, one of the things Rosalie and I kind of thought about, it's shocking, really. If you go into a Lutheran church in Seattle, it's totally different than New Orleans. If you go into a Lutheran church in Missoula, Montana, it's very close to Seattle, but different, but totally different than New Orleans. And Louisiana in general, all of these are, because it's French down here. If you go into Fort Wayne, the heart of Lutheranism, nothing is like it. You know, it is totally different. Everything is Lutheran. I mean, and it's extreme Lutheran.
Yeah.
And you have to adjust to all of that. So when you move to different areas, you can understand how this is so different. When you get into the eastern part of America, it's the same thing. It's very, very different. I mean, when we went up to Quebec one time, where we went through New England, and it's weird. I mean, and they don't have anything to do with anybody up there. You know, they're from Boston. I mean, they own the place. So Pennsylvania's not much different. These are the original colonies. So that culture makes an enormous difference. And this is what's happening here. Israel and they get along. At first, Israel and Philistines coexisted. But there was a lot of intermittent fighting, which we followed a little bit. You're in the book of Judges. Don't leave Judges. With peaceful interludes. But they gradually began penetrating into Beth-Emesh and Gezer. Now, you remember when we're looking. We're moving into area now. Israel. Why? They have to protect their areas. They want to make the trade routes very easy for them and safe. They're not numerous, but they are a military culture. Now, at first, Israel, they coexisted. The patrician charity, now what you're looking at, the chariots of the Philistines Israel could not fight it, which meant they couldn't consolidate. Remember, you got the Philistines and Israel getting along, but there's the Canaanites all up in here too.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, you know, the Israelites will marry Canaanites and they get different children and they get a different world, you know, and it gets pretty wild. And so what is happening here, since the Israelites fought on foot, venturing into the plains is a deadly thing for them to do. They can't do it. Now, this is why it's important. I'm hoping you begin to see something here.
I don't believe God.
Because as we get into David, I think it's going to clarify a lot of things that's going on with David. And the geographical factors conspired to keep Israel disunited. The Galilean tribes were separated from their brothers by the Canaanites in Esdraelon, between eastern and western Jordan. All of these are separated by Canaanites. And so what is happening, the cultures forced a localizing effect on the religious life of Israel. One of the things you find out, and you've heard me say it, and it's not criticism, you know, New Orleans Christianity is wild. You know, if you look at the Lutheranism here, and if you've been anywhere, this is so far from Lutheran, from anywhere you go, that it's unusual. I mean, it's really strange. And to say it, you know, you don't want to offend anybody, but we had a whole new world when we got to Seattle to deal with Lutherans there. And then because they're wealthy in a different world. When we got into Fort Wayne,
Yeah.
boom, man, you were right in the middle of the Lutheran. They're really hardcore.
Right there.
The seminary's all there. The district president was there. Totally different, very tightly knit world. You don't have that. As a result, they drift away. And one of the things I think you notice here, and I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think it has a lot to do probably with the Civil War. When you get into the South, you don't have that really tight religious culture that you have everywhere else, at least. I mean, it's not, just realize it's different. That's all. I don't know if you know it or not, but it really is very different. The Israelites were caught like that. They gradually went in. But remember, God doesn't want that. They do have a firm religious foundation, these people. And so it's the general geographical factor that keeps them disunited. Now,
Yeah.
the book of Ruth is about 1322 BC. And this is, I went through this, I can just go through this fast. If you begin to think of the children of Israel that came out of Egypt, now they're in couple hundred years to hundreds of years later. Now they're settled and they're a total different people. But they still are unsophisticated in terms of the world they're around. You know, one of the things that makes New Orleans really such a very nice city when you're looking at it is it's a seaport. You can get almost anything here, good and bad. But it opens up, you've got a lot more positive things you can do and get, at least so far as material things go in New Orleans than anywhere else, because it's a seaport. A limited one, but it's still there. And this is what, with Israel being right on the coast and the Philistines being there, sooner or later it was going to bring them into problems. And this is what is happening now with the monarchy. The monarchy is going to bring this whole thing into a new focus. See, it was the men, when you look in Judges, it's the men with the real personal charm and vigor, the virtue of their spiritual depth that Yahweh had given them that allowed them to lead the people out. The majority of the people did not have that. And this is why they followed him all the way to the end. But once the person died, you never had that religious depth that these men had. And as they got older, they began to lose it. Now, from here, Deborah and Barak estimated that victory they had is about 1125. And it's important now because you're in the 11th century. Because things are going to change now. You know, Israel has been here a while. They're shattered. They're a loose confederacy. They're not going to go anywhere. And they pretty well split up. Now, somewhere God is going to have to step in here and bring this whole thing back together again. And it's going to be the monarchy that does it. The first crisis of the Philistine crisis was a failure of the tribal organizations to be able to deal with these Philistines. They were so much more sophisticated.
Mm-hmm.
They were trained military men. They had chariots. They fought in organization. David's men weren't like that at first. Israel now for about 200 years had coexisted as a confederacy. And now when Philistines realized Israel is now, it's a united group, a split confederacy, but a united confederacy in its own weak way, they're running into problems with Philistines, and the Philistines now have to deal with them. But they're not a numerous people. That means it's going to give David a chance. And the Philistines was the sort of the Israel loose confederacy. They had no hope of coping with it. But they were a military aristocracy, but not a numerous one. So they gradually would bring everybody else in. And now I want to finish here and then we can get back. The Philistines were strong, formidable fighters, strong military tradition. Seeing Israel as a threat to their own security and maintain control of their own trade routes from the coastal, they wanted to control Palestine. But they had to go now into the Israel area.
Mm-hmm.
So you see what has happened. This whole Canaanite was a group of loose tribes.
Mm-hmm.
And Israel comes in as a dominant force and was able, but it never had enough people to take over the whole thing. And now what has happened with the Philistines coming in, they are the only ones that are going to be able to deal with this. And this is where we are right now. This is what has happened now. And I thought, well, I'll start reading a little bit and get us moving on. Oh, that's behind. That's my picture. So any questions on it? Do you understand that? I hope it helps, because what it's meant to do is at least put some reality in what's happening here. So a lot of times when we read the Old Testament, we just go through it and there's no way of relating to what has happened. We go, oh, these Israelites are, they just they are growing in the area. They're developing. The Lord is using everything to bring them together. He keeps pushing them.
And they keep fighting.
And they keep fighting
And they
him,
keep
but he
fighting.
keeps pushing. And they always have these people, because God puts his spirit on these people, that they begin to love and begin to see. Remember Saul? When we first got into Saul, total different guy than the Saul at the end. Total different guy. He's a very nice guy, and he wants to help. He was very religious.
That doesn't mean.
But he got into a situation of power and he couldn't handle it.
Power
The
destroyed.
Israelites could not handle power. We can't handle it.
Destroyed them.
And so we look at now the destruction of Saul. Now,
31,
this is where we are, and we'll move on to
chapter 31.
chapter 31. Now, let's see where I was. I think I want to get down here. Yeah. Okay, I'll move this around because this I got that far, and I can move this down for next time. Now, 31, we follow the death of Saul.
Here, you're going to read from that.
Yeah.
You got here. You got question on here.
Yeah. Are you following me now? I mean, does it make sense? I hope a little bit.
Just curious. We have the Philistines on the coast, and we have
Yes.
Israel, the tribes more inland. Who's on the other side of Israel, where they want to go do trade with?
The Arabian Desert. Nomads.
No, okay, so there was still trade with nomads, so there was still a
Yeah.
commerce going on.
Right.
Okay.
And then there was, because Egypt, you see what happened. Anybody in Europe, anything, if they want, they could go across the Mediterranean. But as you move further east in Europe, like Greece, they would come across the Mediterranean, the shortest route, and then carry by camel all the material down to Egypt. Egypt was a big place, just like the United States is, or just like New York City, where a lot of goods could be sold. So they were bringing a lot of stuff into Egypt, but there are all these, this is why we'll be talking later, the Highway of the Kings,
Mhm.
or the King's Highway, if you've ever heard that. It runs right through Israel. They would come through, and that's what happened. This is where you're going to be. This is what also the Philistines were trying to get control of. You may have you ever heard the term the Silken Highway or the Silk Highway?
With China, huh?
That is the very same thing. From China, it goes into Byzantium, which is Turkey, that whole area in Turkey.
Okay, let's go.
See, that's where it was. And you had the Silk Road carried you right through it. And whoever dominated the Silk Road, China right now, you have India and China, their problem is that Silk Road yet. China wants to dominate it, India uses it, and they don't have the power yet to totally take it over.
Oh, you're on Ruth.
No, I know I got to switch. And I'm on Chronicles there. Yeah, I'm just there. Okay,
31.
we're on 31. We'll be looking at the Amalekites. Let me do one thing here.
Okay.
I can do something
Yeah, we have
here.
23 minutes.
Yeah, I know. I got to bring that up a little bit.
I want to finish the last
Where are we at? Yes, let's see. I'm here. If I go, let's see. I think I have that here. There. Yeah, Amalekite's going to be right under that. I know I had a map with them on. Is this it? I think. Not good enough. Yeah. There's Philistine. The Amalekites are going to be, let me get my little pointer. Oh, come on, kill him.
I just read the last
Yeah,
chapter.
the Amalekites are going to be right up in, can you see the cursor by any chance?
Yes.
Right up in there. And that's the group that's what they're looking at. And I'll have more of that as we get the rest of the stuff together. And we go to 31. Now, this is the end of Saul and what's going to happen.
First Samuel.
Right. Saul, having lost his army at Gilboa and his sons being slain, he and his armor bearer killed themselves. The Philistines triumphed over their dead bodies. The men of Jabesh Gilead, here we go again. See, the men of Jabesh Gilead recover the bodies and bury them in Jabesh. Now, there is no place now called Jerusalem. Understand that. At this point in time, there is no place called Jerusalem. Now, this is the picture we have. If we go to 1 Chronicles 10, it kind of explains this one here. And I'll just go there and I had to place, I got it right here. Now, this is 1 Chronicles 10. I'm going to read right there. Now the Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled from before the Philistines and fell down slain in Mount Gilboa. Because they don't have the chariots. See? And the Philistines followed hard after Saul and after his sons. And the Philistines slew Jonathan and Abinadab and Malchishu, the sons of Saul. And the battle went sore against Saul, and the archers hit him, and he was wounded of the archers. See, they're able to handle all. They have not only chariots, but they have archers. And they have a cavalry. Israel has nothing like this. Now, the picture you have up here is part of what we're talking about. Well, I don't know what that is. Part of what we're talking about. After they had conquered, we'll get into this.
Can you read?
I am. Then said Saul to his armor bearer, draw thy sword and thrust me through, therewith, lest these uncircumcised come and abuse me. But his armor bearer would not, for he was so afraid. The same reason why David did. He respects him, and he's the anointed of the Lord. So Saul took his sword and fell upon it. And when his armor bearer saw that Saul was dead, he fell likewise on his sword and died. Because he said, now I don't have a chance. I'll let him die, so they're going to kill me because I couldn't defend him. So Saul died, and his 3 sons and all his house died together. So now you have the total end of the house of Saul. And when all the men of Israel that were in the valley saw that, they fled, and that Saul and his sons were dead, then they forsook their cities and fled, and the Philistines came and dwelt in them. See, the people fled. They don't know how to lock up their cities. They don't have big city walls, nothing like that. So the only thing they can do is flee. And now the Philistines take over that area. And it came to pass on the morrow that the Philistines came to strip the slain, that they found Saul and his sons fallen in Mount Gilboa. And when they had stripped him, they took his head and his armor and sent into the land of the Philistines round about to carry tidings unto their idols and to their people.
You're still reading in Colossians.
I'm still reading in Colossians. Chronicles, not Colossians.
I'm sorry, Chronicles.
And when all Jabesh Gilead heard all that the Philistines had done to Saul, they rose, all the valiant men, and took away the body and Saul and the bodies of his sons, and brought them unto Jabesh, and buried their bones under the oak in Jabesh, and fasted 7 days. Now this picture right here shows you the men of Jabesh taking the bodies, you can see the head of these men, off of the wall to bring them back to bury them. And the courage it took to do something like that. So Saul died for his transgression, which he committed against the Lord, even against the word of the Lord, which he kept not, and also for asking counsel of one that had a familiar spirit to inquire of it, and inquired not of the Lord. Therefore he slew him and turned the kingdom unto David, the son of Jesse. and where we were right here in chapter 31. Now you have a full picture of what had happened here. You know, we went down to 12, the valiant men arose, and they took their bones and buried them under a tree in Jabesh and fasted 7 days. Now, this is, if you understand now, one thing that will happen, I'm hoping you begin now to see why the book goes now to 2 Samuel.
The Christmas.
What?
We should honor those in authority, even if they are godless rascals, for the sake of the office given to them by God.
Oh, yeah.
You're talking about Saul,
Yeah.
which makes them his representative.
So what he's saying, what we are now, remember now, Samuel's dead and Saul's dead. The only one we have now is David.
Yeah.
And what has happened, you know what happened with David? When David was going to fight when he didn't know what to do, then the king of, don't remember now, should know that, Keller, not Ziklag. He owned Ziklag and gave him Ziklag. But he told David that the Philistines did not want David fighting with them. So the Amalekite, this is 1056 now, about here. 1056. The Amalekite brings tidings of Saul's death. David laments Saul and Jonathan. And here you have David and his men lamenting. But see, there's a transition coming. You know, most people, I was just listening to something today and kind of following it. We don't realize what the transitions of these nations and these people as they come about. America, you realize, starts out with a colony and it's fighting against England, and it defeats England. And then you watch the turmoil that comes about, which is normal, really. Much like Judges, you know, you get into the Civil War. It is in the First World War that America actually comes in and does something. But from that point on, which most people didn't realize, the Americans, the government and generals and all this had, wait, we've got to learn something about the ocean. So they began a systematic study of sea power and how to use it and what to do.
The Americans.
The Americans. And they continued that to this day.
Mm-hmm.
So that when you watch what's going on, if you follow with China, you know, and this is one thing China's got, they don't know how to deal with now, is they've got all these ships, but they're no match for the American ships and Navy and the experience that the Navy has.
Mm-hmm.
You saw the same thing happen in England. England was just a small villages and everything, and it's a pretty big town. Rome had it for a while. But when the Spanish sent their armada after the British, and the British actually defeated the armada, it's from that point on, it's England becomes the queen of the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And it continues on that, and it passed the baton over to America. And this is what has happened. Now, if you're watching that, now David is in a situation. Remember, David's been having success.
Mm-hmm.
With fighting these people, and he's using something different. We don't know yet, but David's a kind of a forethinker, and he's been able to take care of some of this. So now we're on chapter 1 of second book of Samuel, and it's actually the beginning. We're going to watch the formation of the Israeli state. This is going to be the consolidation of it. And pay close attention because it ends after Solomon.
It ends what?
After Solomon. But
Right.
if you understand Judges, you can understand why Rehoboam wasn't able to hold all of Israel together.
Mm-hmm.
The influence of the Canaanite religion and the culture that they had kept the 10 tribes together, but not the same. Now it came to pass after the death of Saul, when David was returned from the slaughter of the Amalekites, and David had abode 2 days in Ziklag, it came even to pass on the 3rd day that, behold, a man came out of the camp from Saul with his clothes rent and earth upon his head. And so it was, when he came to David, that he fell to the earth and did obeisance.
He came from the Israelitish army.
Right.
So,
And David said unto him, How went the matter? I pray thee tell me. And he answered, That the people are fled from the battle. Many of the people also have fallen and dead, and Saul and Jonathan, his son, are dead also. See, this is the first notice that David has that what has transpired. This is where we stopped. And David said unto the young man that told him, How knowest thou that Saul and Jonathan his son be dead? And the young man that told him said, As I happened by chance upon Mount Gilboa, behold, Saul leaned upon his spear, and lo, the chariots and the horsemen followed. See, chariot hard after him. And when he looked behind him, he saw me and called unto me, and I answered, Here am I. And he said unto me, Who art thou? And I answered him, I am an Amalekite. And he said to me again, Stand, I pray thee, upon me, and slay me, for anguish is come upon me, because my life is yet whole in me. So I stood upon him and slew him, because he was sure he could not live. After that he was fallen. And I took the crown that was upon his head, and bracelets that was on his arm, and have brought them hither unto my Lord.
sounds like he's lying. This guy.
Well, you know that. We know that. Remember? See,
It's improbable.
this picture here, this is where we are now.
Okay.
You know, see, he has fallen on
This
his
guy's
both.
lying.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's lying.
Then David took hold on his clothes and rent them, and likewise all the men that were with him.
Mm.
And they mourned and wept and fasted until even for Saul and for Jonathan his son, and for the people of the Lord, and for the house of Israel, because they were fallen by the sword. See, this is a major loss. A major loss. There's nothing now in Israel. The Confederacy doesn't even have a king. And there's no really prophet there to anoint anybody. This is why Samuel had to do it before. And David said unto the young man that told him, Whence art thou? And he answered, I am the son of a stranger, an Amalekite. And David said unto him, How wast thou not afraid to stretch forth thine hand to destroy the Lord's anointed? And David called one of the young men and said, Go near and fall upon him. And he smote him that he died. See, the Amalekite now is bringing the news to David and letting him know, but that's not how it happened. That's why I went through these others, so you at least you know. You see the problem here. He's lying.
Said Saul would have hardly been standing alone.
Right.
A single issue. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And David said unto him, The blood be upon thy head, for thy mouth hath testified against thee, saying, I have slain the Lord's anointed.
He didn't really do that.
And David lamented with this lamentation over Saul and over Jonathan his son. Also he bade them teach the children of Judah the use of the bow. See, now they're going to have a bow. And it's not a boyfriend, it's not French. They're going to learn how to use a bow.
So he did not actually kill Saul.
No, Saul fell on his own sword.
No, that's right.
Behold, it is written in the book of Jasher, the beauty of Israel is slain upon thy high places. How are the mighty fallen? Tell it not in Gath, publish it not in the streets of Ashkelon. See, these are all, this is Philistine. Lest the daughters of the Philistines rejoice, lest the daughters of the uncircumcised triumph. Ye mountains of Gilboa, let there be no dew, neither let there be rain upon you, nor fields of offering. For there the shield of the mighty is vilely cast away, the shield of Saul as though he had not been anointed with oil. From the blood of the slain, from the fat of the mighty, the bow of Jonathan turned not back, and the sword of Saul returned not empty. Saul and Jonathan were lovely and pleasant in their lives, and in their death they were not divided. They were swifter than eagles, they were stronger than lions. Ye daughters of Israel, weep over Saul, who clothed you in scarlet with other delights, who put on ornaments of gold upon your apparel. See, what the united front with the kingdom, when they got the king, allowed them to begin to accumulate riches. Now pay attention, because what that's going to mean, it's going to be these same riches that's going to destroy Jerusalem. How are the mighty fallen in the midst of the battle, O Jonathan, thou wast slain in thine high places. I am distressed for thee, my brother Jonathan. Very pleasant hast thou been unto me. Thy love to me was wonderful, passing the love of women. How are the mighty fallen, and the weapons of war perished?
Is David saying that?
David saying that he's really lamenting.
It was a national song and preserved.
Yeah.
The names of Saul and Jonathan and Israel.
Yeah.
A national song. Okay.
Any questions on this now? I'm hoping you follow what we're talking about here and why I did what I did, because I'm hoping it'll give you some continuity between Judges, because what is happening, Israel is now growing. It's now becoming solid. You know, one of the things that has happened in America is when you look at what is going on during the 20s and 30s and all, America was very solidly won, and the people loved coming here because they could then begin to find a life for themselves.
Freedom, yeah.
This freedom was very important to them. They don't get that now in the colleges.
The language,
they're going for socialism, but the socialism is really feudalism. And you got to talk political to understand what this is all about. Just like here, in order to understand the transition from Israel, from Judges to Samuel with the king, and then to David, it's political. Any questions on that? Well, go ahead. Okay.
Oh, this is bad because
I don't think that's thunder.
yeah, it's
Maybe
thunder.
it is.
It's
Okay.
been thundering.
Yes, it is.
It's been thundering.
Okay.
I think we
now,
can get rain.
we have two. Two's kind of a big chapter.
See you later.
Yeah, I can wait for two because two's a big one.
Are you okay, Miss?
And I think what I'll be able to do this week is kind of conclude, because I have some maps that will help us. Let's see if I can get them up now, and then we can get back, because I know I've got to start sharing to get there. Now let's see, where was, oh yeah, yes. Yeah, I can go right here. I think, let's see. Book of Judges, 1 Samuel. Okay, just give me a minute now. I won't be long on this. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. I'm there. Okay, there. Now. Oh, we want none of that. We want all files. Okay. Oh wait, I can't bring it up on this one here because this is PowerPoint. Let's see if I can get the other one out. I can save that. Don't have to worry about that. Okay, it has stopped looking at the time. I had it, so let's see if I got it up. It opened it. Okay, no, it didn't. Let's go here. Unless I can get it in here. If I can't, I got it. And at least we'll have that, and then it should be time. Yes. Yeah, here we go. Now, if I can get the other things up, we're almost there. Okay, here we go. Okay. Can see where I'm at now. Come on, slide it. Oh, wait, I can get rid of this. Yeah, I don't need. And if I pull this down, okay, there we go. Can y'all see that?
Yeah.
Okay, see here, that's the one we had before. Here's Gaza, Ashkelon, Ashdod, Ekron, and Gath. Here's where the Amaleks are. Now remember, it was Saul who first defeats them, and then they come back and nail him again. And this is when David really gets involved. But see, all these areas, the wilderness of Moab, these are all, this will be good. This is about the time of where we are right now. This would be a map of what it looks like. And some of these we'll be able to get into. See, the second incident, Saul pursues David. Right up in here, we have all of these little tricks where he's going after him. But that gives you an idea where Amalek is. This is Philistine, all in this area. And there's even more than that, really, when you get the full picture of this. But I'll have the full thing up there. But just gives you some idea geographically. See, they're not that far. Now notice, there's no place called Jerusalem anywhere on here. Because Jerusalem's coming up next week. See, Bethlehem. No, see Jebus, Jerusalem, right up there.
Yeah.
Bethlehem isn't there. This is another place. We'll be looking at this. Because once David conquers all, and this is why David is the one that conquers Jerusalem, and that's why it's called the city of David. He conquered it. Nobody else could. But he learned from the Philistines on how to do it. Okay, we can close with prayer. Again, Heavenly Father, guide us and teach us. And as we go through this, help us to grow. We understand, in your truth, where we are, what happens to us depends on how we are and how you bless us. And as we go, prayer, what is prayer? Actually, faith that you will answer, a willing surrender that we're ready for your answer no matter what it is. And not only the willing surrender, but also the faithful heart or the clear heart. And then we find out you answer these prayers in ways that will be more understandable to us for what we're looking for. As we go through all of this, it's understanding how the evil that Saul had brought him down, but yet the goodness that David had allowed him to conquer what Saul lost and what Saul had. Teach us as we go and see in our life how you work faithfully in our lives that help us and guide us. Teach us your truth and help us to live in your grace. Amen. Okay. I hope that makes sense. If it ever gets boring, let me know. I mean that sincerely, because I don't know if I'm making sense half of the time with this.
I gotta run. My neighbor's power's out and she's on oxygen.
Oh, no, I understand. We got to run too.
Okay.
Okay. Anything? Any questions?
About how long was Saul's reign? I was trying to go back and look. I should know that.
It was only probably around, I will say right off, I'm not sure, 20 years, maybe not even that much.
Years.
I'll bet it's not even that much. It's probably around 10 years.
Okay.
I will have that. That's one of the things I want to get in and give you more of a look at that.
Seems like he spent about half of it chasing David.
And that's true. But you see, the problem is the power. In order, what he was after was to preserve what he had, and he had forgotten that God had given it to him. And what that meant was he's in big trouble. And we're like that. I mean, the things we have, God has given us that. By his grace, we have that. And also by his grace, we lose that. But there's always a reason behind it. And that's what we struggle to understand. I hope that helps a little bit.
It's for us today, 10 years is so much happens in 10 years. When you think of 10 years in a no technology, no industry, just I guess
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
trying to find themselves. It's just the amount of distance. We see these maps, and I can't see the scale, but we're only looking at a few hundred miles. From
Yeah.
maybe top to bottom, or going across. But when you don't have a car, a few hundred miles is a lot.
You're not kidding. Yes.
Yeah.
And if you think about one of the things that makes us so different than the people around us is we're from the generation of the 40s. we brought in the TV. The TV came in with us. The computer came in with us. All of that came in with us. So we still live in the old world.
And when you talk about maybe 350 years or something between something and something, our nation's not 350 years old, but we
Right.
think of it as being around for a long time. But compared to other societies, we're relatively young. But
And that's why I brought in what I did.
You think starting with the telegraph, which was a big thing, and going from a telegraph now to a computer with internet, it's like,
yes,
just.
Well, I'm gonna have to run.
Okay, yeah, go. It was good.
No.
I'm so glad on the sermon today you read the extra verses. I was looking at that, and it's like, how can he say that's good for you to have done that? It's like, oh, that doesn't sound like God to me. So
right.
Yeah. So it made sense. I'll let you go. Go, take care of it. Tomorrow's another day.
Absolutely. Thanks a
Okay.
lot, Anita. Really,
Okay.
I appreciate everything you do,
Okay.
and I mean that sincerely.
Good night.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night.